Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give a couple people a chance to get in. We did get an email that one person was having problems, so we're just going to wait for 1 second before we get started today. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Display Advertising, what it is and why you should try it. I'm Jennifer Davis. I have David Marks with me, who will be going through the chat. If you have any questions, interrupting me so that we can answer those questions, please make this interactive. And if you have a question on a particular slide, let's stop and talk about it. But we'll also leave some time for Q&A at the end. So welcome and let's get started. So first, what is display advertising? Display advertising refers to the process of advertising a product or service through visuals like images and videos. And this can be on a network of publisher websites, which includes the Google Display Network, which I'll get into a little bit more detail and will be our focus today, as well as other things like Facebook. We won't get too much into Facebook today because that's a kind of a different advertising platform, although it has the visual components, and we do talk about social advertising at another time. If you think about it, display ads are placed on relevant third-party websites in the form of a banner, image, and text ads. While you can put text ads on the Google Display Network, for instance, if you are going to be advertising on the Google Display Network, it's best to do it with visuals. That's what the opportunity is there. If you just want to use text ads, Google search by itself might be the better opportunity. So let's talk a little bit more about what is display advertising. Here is an example. You're pretty much familiar with it as you navigate through websites, but this is the New York Times. You see we've got some advertising from Toyota here on either the right and the left of the banner of the New York Times. There's actually a video embedded kind of in the leaderboard. So you've seen these as you surfed various websites, particularly publications like this, for instance, even CNN and those types of websites will also have banner ads as well. So let's talk a little bit about the Google Display Network, and I have a video coming up that will talk a little bit more in detail, but the Google Display Network, where you can have those image type display banner ads, actually spans more than 2 million websites. So these are all websites that have partnered with Google to be part of their display network. And so your ads can show across all these websites. Most likely it will not, because you want to hone in on your audience, for instance. But generally speaking, the Google Display Network can reach about 90% of the worldwide internet traffic. Again, you're not going to reach all of those people, nor do you probably want to, but you do have that ability to do so. So I'm going to jump into a video really quickly to talk a little bit more about Google Display Network, and a little bit about re-engagement and engaging with visitors with the display. And I'll get into a little bit of how to start a display ad. So let's get started.
Now that you understand the power of search, it's time to think about Google Display Ads. People show a high purchase intent when they search for your product or service, which is why it's important that your ad shows up. But 96% of time spent online happens outside of search, across websites, on YouTube, in Gmail, or in mobile apps. So how do you reach these potential customers across Google properties? Google Display Ads can help you reach 90% of global internet users at all points in the buying cycle, from discovery to purchase. This is done with powerful machine learning technology that utilizes user signals to ensure you reach the right potential customers. When thinking about reaching the right audiences, there are two complementary strategies you should consider. The first is re-engage. This strategy allows you to serve relevant, powerful messages to people who have already engaged with your business. For example, offering a deal to people who have visited your website or reminding people about a product or service they were interested in. The second strategy you should consider is expand. Expanding allows you to reach new qualified customers that you've never connected with before. For example, if you're selling kids' shoes, you might want to show ads to parents, or more specifically, to people who are actively looking to buy children's apparel. Google Ads offers a variety of audience types, but in this video, we'll focus on two types of audiences: remarketing, which falls under the re-engage strategy, and custom intent, which falls under the expand strategy. Let's first discuss remarketing. In order to show your ads to people who interacted with your website or mobile app, you need to first implement the Google Ads tag and build remarketing lists. The remarketing global site tag and event snippets are blocks of code that add your website visitors to remarketing lists. This allows you to show your ads to previous visitors. Let's get started. Go to Tools, and under the Shared Library, click Audience Manager. Go to Audience Sources and choose Google Ads tag. Click on Tag Setup. Now choose if you want to implement the tag yourself, email the tag to someone else, like your website admin, or implement it through Google Tag Manager. All three options have clear instructions on how to implement the tag. After you implement your tag successfully, you will see some lists that are automatically created. You'll see an All Visitors list of everyone who has visited your website, an All Converters list, or a Google Ads optimized list that combines audiences from multiple sources into a single remarketing list. You can also create your own list. For example, you can create a list of people who have visited a specific product page, or a list of people who abandoned their shopping cart. Let's say you're selling kids' clothes and you want to show a special offer to everyone who has visited your onesies page. This can be set up easily if your onesies page has a unique URL that contains a word like onesies or any other unique expression. In the Audience Manager, choose Audience Lists and click the plus button. For this example, let's create a website visitors list. Give your audience a clear name. There are several types of rules that you can define a list with. For this example, we're creating a list with visitors of a page. Define the URL rule for your specific list. In this case, we want to use a URL that contains the word onesies. You can also define a rule for a URL that starts or ends with a word, or a URL that doesn't contain a certain word. You can then define a membership duration for your list. The default is 30 days, but it can be changed to any time between 1 day to 540 days. You should choose a membership duration based on how long it takes people to convert, from the moment they first visit your website to the time they make a purchase. For example, people who are browsing for shampoo might purchase shortly after researching, in comparison to people who are interested in buying auto insurance. Now click Create Audience. You'll see your list on the Audience Lists tab. Now let's implement the list in your campaign. In your account, click Display Campaigns, and then click Audiences. Click the pencil icon, then select Edit Ad Group Targeting. Select an ad group. Make sure to select a new ad group that doesn't have existing audiences assigned to it, since it's not recommended to layer audiences. Under Targeting, select Narrow Targeting. Select Audiences, and then click the pencil icon next to Target Audiences. Click Browse and select Remarketing and Similar Audiences. You'll be able to find your list under Website Visitors. Select it and scroll down to Settings. At this stage, You can decide if you want to increase your reach to users with similar profiles and by how much. Base your decision on the weekly estimates while moving the toggle. Click Save. Let's now discuss custom intent as part of your expand strategy. Think about this. 7 Google properties reach over 1 billion people monthly. Signals from all of these properties help qualify an audience who is actively shopping with intent to purchase. Custom intent is a unique audience list you can create based on keywords and landing pages that you define in order to reach a highly qualified audience. Sometimes new advertisers don't have enough website visitors to run remarketing campaigns. If that's the case, you can start with custom intent by expanding to new customers and then later re-engage with potential customers who have already visited your website. Let's create a custom intent audience. Go to your display campaigns and follow the same steps as remarketing, but after you get to the targeted audience option, choose In-Market and Custom Intent. Click the blue plus icon next to New Custom Intent Audience. Create a name for your custom intent audience and add any related keywords or URLs that this audience might be actively researching. It's recommended to add about 15 keywords or URLs to help the system better understand your audience. Keywords are considered broad match, so there's no need to include plurals or misspellings. After you enter your keywords and URLs, you can view suggested auto-created segments on the right under Ideas. Add whatever is relevant. Under Audience Size, you can preview the estimated reach and demographic information of your custom intent audience. Click Create, and now scroll down to Settings. You'll be able to control how far you want to expand your defined audience. Now click Save. These two types of audience strategies are complementary. You can grow your audience and reach new people while helping existing audiences finalize their conversion. Now that you understand the reach of display, let's wrap up your learnings with a Google Ads success checklist.
Jen, we can't hear you.
Thank you, David. Sorry, I forgot I muted myself during the video. I wanted to stop here before we get into more details about creatives, how they're used, and other strategies for display. I wanted to see if there's any questions so far.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Let me go back to presentation. Hold on one second. All right, so now let's get into a little bit of why you should choose display advertising. So display ads have the potential to increase your marketing ROI or ROAS, whatever you look at, as their format demands attention because of the visual aspect that they bring. They also bring brand awareness as well as visibility to your brand or store and target relevant audiences through placements. You saw that on the video. For instance, you can go after customers that are shopping for a particular product at this time and related to that and how many visitors you could receive, their demographics, for instance, as well as reach audiences that have been to your site. Maybe they haven't converted, maybe they have converted, but you have a new product to offer them. So other things like retargeting campaigns. So again, this is very focused on the audience that you are targeting, whether that is new people or people that have already been to your website, whether they're current customers or at least have visited you. Also, display advertising. So again, display ads are visually appealing. How many times have you been on a website and clicked on an ad because it shows something that, while you didn't even realize you were interested in it, the visual was there and it prompted you to do that. Again, they really support brand awareness. So, and we'll talk a little bit about the customer journey in a second. But that, with today's day and age, between mobile phones, laptops, customers are coming back and forth from websites, whether it's social, seeing a display ad, seeing a Google search ad. So having brand awareness out there is very important, and display ad definitely has an impact on that. You can really effectively target your display ads. Again, you're honing in on a particular audience, so knowing your consumers and a little bit more information about them will allow you to do that. And again, because of the visual nature, brand awareness, it brings a lot of visibility with your display ads as well. And with all ads, whether it's the Google Display Network or other display networks, it provides you even more data, and usually more audience-specific data, demographic information that can even help you outside of display ads with your other advertising or who your consumers really are. And again, display ads support retargeting. It's a great way to get people who have engaged with you in some manner to re-engage with you, whether that's offering them a promo or just noticing, allowing them to notice that you know that they have visited you and that you want them back, for instance. So again, I talked about that customer journey, and here's just a visualization. There's nothing specific. This can be any type of product, service, ultimately showing a customer journey. Nobody just searches for something and ultimately purchase. You saw, for instance, in the video, if it's shampoo, yes, maybe that is a one-click and done type deal, but things like car insurance or other purchases may not. There might be more research, reviews. So, a customer can see an online display ad, sign up, go to the website, sign up in some way, maybe get a direct mail piece. They might see mobile display. They might need a second direct mail piece. They might do an online search, ultimately visit websites, and then perhaps even go to a brick and mortar store. So every consumer is different. Every consumer journey, regardless, based on the product or the service that they're purchasing, is different, but there are absolutely multiple touch points. So display advertising, again, adds that visual, that brand awareness, that reminder that you're still there, even if they're not ready to make that purchase on that particular day. So what is the success of display advertising? One of the most important things is optimizing your ads for your display advertising. And that includes the creatives behind it because of the visual elements. So here are a couple common display banner sizes: the 200 by 200, the 300 by 250, 335 by 280, 320 by 100, the leaderboard 728 by 990, and the 300 by 600. If you're working with a designer that is used to doing display advertising, this should be known to them, but there are some common sizes. There are actually a lot more sizes. If I go to the next slide, you won't be able to necessarily read all of these, but there's a lot of different options, and it shows some of the placements that some of these may be on websites. So it's not to say that, for instance, a billboard that's off over here to the side here might not be lower on the page, for instance, but it gives you some idea of the placement. So for instance, billboard's going to take up a whole width, where something like the leaderboard may not take up the whole width of the page, for instance. And again, different sites will have different requirements. Usually they're standard sizes, but they might only accept 5 sizes. They may accept 10 sizes. It all depends on the site. So if you're making particular placements on particular websites based on the consumers, you may be limited as to the sizes that they accept. Also, pricing is different. So something like a billboard, which is takes up the entire width of the page, as well as generally is going to come at the top of the page, is probably going to cost more than something that's coming further down in the page or is smaller, like the half banner. So different sizes, different positions can have an impact on price as well. So let me just stop and see if there's any questions on that.
So I'm not seeing any at the moment.
Okay. And I should also say some of these sizes are also synonymous with Facebook. Let me just stop because there is a question in regards to display ads on Google Network and Facebook. So a little bit of the difference between the two is Facebook has a lot more demographic information, for instance, that it gathers about its users. So you can get a little bit more information there. It's also Facebook specific. They have to have a Facebook account. They have to be in Facebook in order to advertise them. So I don't know the numbers of Facebook, but obviously that is a smaller number than the billion that you can get over Google's display network. With Google Display Network, you have probably a bigger reach, but you have potentially less demographic information. And I'll give you for an example. In Facebook, you can advertise if I had a client that was a landscape commercial type lawnmower manufacturer, and they were starting to go after residential consumers that had over an acre of land, because that's what their lawnmowers were really made for, the riding lawnmowers. In Facebook, I can actually segment people and advertise them based on the acreage of their home, for instance. Can't do that in Google Display Network. That's getting too granular for the information that they hold. So that's one of the biggest difference is the granular of information, but also just the reach in general. Google, much bigger reach. Facebook, while you do get a lot of users, compared to the Google Display Network, there is a lesser reach. All right. So my suggestions of where to start in display is remarketing. That's usually the easiest. You've already got people that are have been engaged with your website. And again, as you saw in the video, you can actually target people that visited the onesie page versus the shoes page, for instance. So you can get really targeted on it, or you can just target everybody that had been to your site. And let's say you have an e-commerce store, you can target people that have not converted with a transaction. The other thing is to do smart display. Now, smart display is based on volume. We have so many conversions per month. Google kind of changes the standards here and there, so something to check up on if you're looking at this. But smart display campaigns is really allowing Google, you load in the images, and they handle all of the placements as well as bid adjustments as well. So it's a little bit more hands-off. You basically just tell them what the goal is, whether that's an e-commerce transaction, if you are looking for a return on investment or something like that, or the number of visitors, and it will actually do most of the work for you. This is a great way to start. Start small, couple $100 in budget perhaps, just to see how it goes. And then the other thing is, again, start small. If you have no smart display option, if you don't have enough volume from it, then I would just start with 1 to 3 website placements that you're confident will interest your audience and grow from there. So again, if you're selling onesies, you probably don't want to do a placement on CNN. That's not going to be wholly your audience, but you might go to a mommy blogger website that is talking about newborns, for instance. That might be an opportunity there. I'm going to stop because I do see a question on how often do you need to place an ad. So it just depends on what you're selling as part of it. So we do suggest to refresh ads, whether they're text ads or search ads, display ads. What I will say, if you're using something like social, Facebook, and David, you chime in here as well, that's something that you want to update, could be every week or two. Because you're going to hit the same visitors over and over again with a lot of frequency based on the targeting and the niche you can get down to. David, do you have anything to add on that with Facebook advertising?
So when it comes to Facebook, I often think, as Jen said, it kind of weeks chunks. Usually I look at 2 to 3 weeks. If I notice that I'm getting certain results for one ad versus another, I'll allocate more of the funds that I've been that I have towards the ad that is performing better. But basically, I review stuff every 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. So somewhere a little before a month is when I would kind of look at placing ads, just so you can get enough data and figure out kind of what's working and what's not.
Right. And then what I would say about display ads, like in the Google Display Network, is making sure that you're a little bit relevant. So for instance, you don't want to have an ad out there that shows a happy family at a picnic table when it's January. Even if that visual kind of helps, like you kind of want to stay with the times. If you've noticed, TV commercials as well as maybe other display ads that show people right now are actually showing masks because of COVID. So staying relevant is important, and also changing that up a little bit in the sense of you don't want people to see the same ad for 6 months, because if they didn't purchase in the first month or two, the chances of them purchasing in the 6th month with the same exact ad are pretty low. But it might be an opportunity to show them a new ad, whether that's a new promo or just something different with different colors, even though it might have the same message. So I would suggest looking at it from a seasonal aspect, staying current with anything if that's relevant to your business, as well as changing out the message or perhaps the promo if you have it. And I would do that anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. All right. So, couple ending words of wisdom here is don't give up. So, particularly with display ads, visitors are not always going to convert after that click of the display ad, for instance. So if you notice, for instance, you start display and within a couple days, couple weeks, perhaps, depending on your sales cycle, of course, if your sales and leads are going up after starting display, even if you can't make that one-to-one connection of this user clicked on a display ad and ultimately purchased or did a lead form, for instance, know that display is still having an impact and don't give up on it. So even if you can't make that one-to-one connection, if you're seeing a lift, stick with it. The other thing is just give it time. Display advertising does not have an immediate impact. Search, where somebody is putting in a keyword and looking for something, they're more in the moment, they're more in that intent bucket, and will convert potentially a little bit faster. Display advertising, it could take weeks or months depending on the typical customer research or your sales cycle that you normally do. It's going to depend on your service or product, of course. Some will take a couple days, some may take a couple weeks. So something to keep in mind is just don't give up on it. Don't, say it didn't work in 3 weeks. It could take a couple months.
Okay, we have another question from John. We are planning on a Facebook campaign to get new clients. How can we leverage that with display ads to maximize our reach and results?
I mean, basically, John, it would just be creating a display campaign within Google. You can use the same imagery that you're using in Facebook. Sizes usually can overlap and things like that. And because you're probably getting more granular information on Facebook as far as audience targeting, that might actually help you. So if you see, for instance, and again, because Google is limited on some of that targeting from a demographic information, but if, for instance, you see on Facebook that you're getting a better result from females, for instance, then make sure your Google advertising display network is more geared towards females. So you can kind of use your data from Facebook into the Google Display Network. But anybody can enter the Google Display Network with just even a couple $100. So it's just creating a Google AdWords account and then creating a campaign that is geared. The difference is search versus display campaigns. So it really is just creating a display campaign.
I would also add, John, you start out slow and test. That's essentially how you're going to get the best data out of anything to figure out what's working best for you. So start out slow, test, and then readjust as you move along.
All right, that's all I had for today. Just checking to see if there's any more questions. And even if you don't think of them now, obviously we're always around. David, myself, Virginia, we can always ask. You can always ask a question via email. We'll always get back to you. Or if you need any more help with your display campaigns or a strategy, or even kind of reasons to do that, we can certainly have a one-on-one conversation on that as well.
Yep, just let us know.
Well, it doesn't look like any more questions to me, David.
Yep, I'm not seeing any.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for attending. Hope you got something out of today, and have a great fall weekend.
Have a good one.
All right.
Oh,
Bye.
one thing that we should mention, the video will be available after probably a little earlier next week on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to see the slides there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.